Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's break down my thoughts surrounding the LEC. I will make note of the discrepancies that I have in regards to, of course, some players that I don't know, fully about. I think we start from below, and then maybe I'm going to change things real time. The first two teams that I would want to place on the list would be like Team Heretics, Team Vitality, SK Gaming. I think some combination of these three teams should be on the lower half. I want to, it's like the roster I'm probably the least excited about is Team Heretics personally. It's kind of crazy that they have the most amount of hearts. I'm not so sure how that works. But Team Heretics, let me just fix that again so it makes sense. Let me see, that looks good on stream. All right. Team Heretics. I am personally not super excited about them because the players that I do know, like I did watch some Stand in Champions Queue when he was subbing in for Vitality when Hilly wasn't playing. I watched some Camilo in some streamed tournaments. I do think that like he seems to be like individually decent, but when I look at the core of this team in terms of what I do know, I think Flacket is like a decent player, but I think that he is not going to be the type of player to raise the ceiling of a team ever. And I don't see how this team is going to be, fighting the issues of the previous year any better. I think Shiva as well, he's very, very up and down. I don't know much about Carlsen at all. But when I look at the pieces that I do know and the bits and pieces I've seen from Camilo and Stand, it's hard for me to imagine a world where they break through. They would have to really, really like impress me. Maybe they, of course, keep in mind in making this tier list is like this is for Winter Split. My expectations for Winter Split. I do think that Winter Split comes with a lot of randomness because we're going to have Atakan. How much practice you get in winter and January and December, of course, really, really matters. And you can find ways to get like a competitive edge because we don't know where the meta would land. And of course, the first 3 weeks of the LEC is going to be BO1, so we're going to have like super weeks, right? So there's definitely an opportunity to break through. Like if I give them a range, I will probably be I will probably put it between 7 and 10. That would be like a range that I would put them in. 9, I think the next one here, the big conversation would be like Team Vitality, SK Gaming. I think Team Vitality, SK Gaming, Rogue. This is the teams that we will have in like the next order. I do think that it's like already with knowing the players in, of course, Hilly and Kazi and Linsas, I feel like there should be enough firepower to be able to push them through. I think that SK Gaming, it's like Genax is a very experienced player, and we have players here that have played together on both. I believe like I believe Genax and Rieker has a lot of history. This is Rieker's return to the LCS. Loopy is also not someone that I know super much about. I don't know too much about Loopy. I think Rahel was very formidable and decent, but I do think across the board SK Gaming has made downgrades, right? I think that losing Niski and also Irrelevant is downgrades across the board. I think that probably instinctually I want to put SK Gaming here. I want to put them next. I think that they can be in a similar range as Heretics. This would be like that range. But I would hope that they would place better than Team Heretics in the opening. So there's that. Next in line, I think it's just a question of comparing Rogue versus Team Vitality. I think the weird thing for Team Vitality is that macro-wise, mid to late game, they've looked so terrible. And I don't feel like the changes that they made is going to help them there. I think that Chayek probably is a player that can be more shaped than Viteo, because Viteo was not playing well and he seemed so stubborn in the way he played too. And I think the hope here is that Team Vitality is a long-term project that is going to do better, right? Because a lot of these players have been handpicked by the coaching staff and so forth. I think having Kazi and Hylissang as a base is very strong, but I have my concerns about Team Vitality. I think that this is I don't see Team Vitality solving their problems in any way with these roster changes. I think also the range is 7 from 10. I think the biggest hope for Team Vitality is that it's going to be like a very, very heavy bot lane centric meta, and Kazi and Hilly. I think that this is a bot lane that can compete in lane against the best lanes in Europe. So there's of course that, right? Maybe there's a world where they can achieve a higher range. I do think that Linces is a player that is pretty damn decent. I think Naknako is someone that has potential. Chayek, I'm personally not super excited about. I think like Naknako is mechanically very interesting and has a very unique champion pool and can become potentially a good player. But I think the Team Vitality is going to lack in a lot of the departments they lacked in last year. But I think that their individual firepower has gotten worse, because I do think that Photon can like Photon did a lot of work for them in the games that they actually did win. So there's that. Yeah. Okay. Someone in the chat said I don't think they can ever be last place. I think with the nature of winter and how it works, I think there's a chance. There's definitely a chance. This is also, we need to keep in mind the format here. I reiterate, we need to keep in mind the format. Seventh for me would be Rogue. I do think that Rogue has managed to piece together like a very decent roster. I do think that Rogue, their core in Jonghoon and Malrang, I do feel like these are players that can drive games at a very high level. I think that Jonghoon and Malrang together, I think that, I think that's a very, very good core. I think that Larson in games where, there is little attention on him, I think that's okay. I think that Adam as a player, it's like there's a decent amount of spice here, I do think that Malrang, Jonghoon can be very busy in games in a very positive way, and I think that if there's a team in the bottom 4 that I could see like causing some upset damage to teams that are on the higher end, I feel like this is a team that can definitely like catch people off guard, I think the main thing here is that people are very down on Patrick, right? Which is understandable. I think he was very uninteresting last year. But I think that Patrick has shown at times a good level. Like I don't think that we can throw him completely under the bus and just like give up on him, because Patrick has shown high ceilings at certain times in his career. So I do think that it's possible for him to play well. I don't know how Malrang did in Brazil. I really, really don't know. But there's something about Malrang and Execute together that gets me hyped. But Malrang, I don't know how he played in Brazil. And at the same time, Jonghoon did get benched for Duro, who is now, of course, the Genji support. So there's that. But I do think that the upside here with Jonghoon and Malrang as the core, I think that I like them the most out of the teams in the bottom 4, but definitely they can make it. I don't think that they have crazier ranges, but I do think with how I imagine things playing out, that maybe they can break through. Okay, I think now it gets very interesting, very, very interesting, and maybe I need to do some thinking real time here. Because we have, of course, BDS, Giants, KC, G2, Fnatic, and Movistar Koi. I guess we just... in my mind, Team BDS, like 113 is the one that is the most interesting to me here, in terms of like just being the player on this team. I do think that 113 is a player that is capable of doing dirty work. It's like there is a lot of good. The core here is very strong in Nuke, Ice, irrelevant. Like those are very, very solid players. And I do think that 113 is a player that can do a lot of dirty work. You know, he has history with working with Striker too. So like, I do believe there's a clear intention here. I do think that this is a player that that could be just someone that slams, you know, his Sejuanis and just sets up his team for success. And I think that 113 could do that well. I think he could do that well. I repeat too, I didn't watch 113 play this whole year. I just remember his play from, of course, Astralis times, and his ambition was to fight level 3 no matter what, you know? I think that Parus, from watching him, I think he's a very, very exciting player. I think he has very, very good potential. I think that that's a very interesting signing. I think Ice was like MVP candidate last year, in my opinion, in terms of his play. Was very, very good in many different metas, was super, super insane. I think Team BDS, it would be very, very hard for me to see them not being in top 4, you know? It's really, really hard for me to see them not breaking top 4. Where exactly, we to be continued. Giants with Noah, June, Jackie's, Closer, and Lot. Lot is a player that I don't know too much about, but looking at June, Noah, Jackie's, Closer, I feel like this is a team that could be very, very dangerous early game, man. Like, very, very dangerous early game. I think that Jackie's and Noah, I think these are players that, you know, can carry games. I have this... I believe that Noah is going to do better here than he would do on Fnatic. I feel like sometimes when you have a bad start, a lot of things weigh on you, because as dynamics kind of pan out, it's very, very hard to rewrite how your teammates view you, right? And I feel like Noah breaking out of the environment of Fnatic, not that Fnatic environment was horrible something, it's more about the fact that he can move on from his identity that he has shaped in Fnatic. I believe, I've said this about Fnatic last year, is that I think that each and every player on that team will be better on the next team that they go to. Because I think that individually everyone was super, super good on that team, but the dynamics just didn't work. It didn't work at all. No one was improving, no one was getting better. Too many scars of the past was weighing heavy on them. And I think that Noah is definitely like the poster boy of that. I do think that Noah and Noah's gonna do better on Giants than I think he did on Fnatic, you know? So I think this is a good move for him. I think it's a good signing from Giants too. I think in the short term, probably, I would put them here. I would have to maybe dissect a little bit more. We have to see. KC, I do think that Kana started playing better and better over time. He definitely got a lot more comfortable in being in Europe. I think that Vladi and Kalist are fantastic, like up-and-coming rookies. Vladi only played one split last year, so I still put him in the rookie box, right? I think the main thing for me, which I think the whole community also sees it the same way, is this is going to be a very, very big challenge for Yike. If you guys would listen to any of the Sackdown episodes, we always talked about how Yike is, Yike needs to suffer to reinvent himself, you know? I do think that things from outside seemed like they were very easy for Yike, so he got away with more, and I think that stifled his progression. And I think in this team, he really, really needs to step up big time in order for this team to function, because Targamas had the most success as a player when he played with very loud and decisive junglers. Think of when Targamas had the most success, that was together with Jankos. It was with Synkrov. These are players that are big, driving forces, you know? And Yike, on the other side, was playing with Mickey before, right? And Mickey isn't the biggest communicator either, but BB and, of course, Hansama covered that part, right? And I think that Mickey made the early games very easy for Yike. So this is going to be a very, very new scenario for Yike. I think that KC as a team has a lot of upside, but I think they carry a lot of risk too. I haven't decided on the ranges just yet, but I just kind of want to talk about all of the teams before I go through. I have to say that Kalist and Vladi as players, even though they are rookies, I do think that they are very, very vocal as players, very demanding as players. And I think that's probably the most impressive thing about Kalist is that he is very, very demanding from his teammates. And I think that's super, super cool. A big conversation point, right? I do think that the expectations on Kalist are extremely high. There's very little Kalist can do in order to fulfill those expectations. But it's like win to split. This is like win to split is not important. I hope Casey learned from last year. Is I tried to make this clear, right? It's like that win to split is not a question of the result. It's a question of how you use your time. You have to just be very careful about how you frame things and how you use your time, because you want to be able to just straight up be as good as possible in spring and coming into summer. Because, for example, for Kalist or for any player that is coming into the league, you have to adjust to life in Berlin when it's cold as fuck. Kalist, most of the time, played in the KC office in Paris, right? Or he played from home, right? These are things that matter. It's like, this was a very, very big shock for a player like Saken, right? And these are things that you need to be given time to adjust to. Like if Kalist doesn't perform in winter, I'm personally not gonna care. And I hope the people that watch don't care. And if he performs amazingly well, then we should be ecstatic about it. Super, super hyped. It shouldn't be, oh, I told you so. Because if he performs even at the top 3 level, right? Top 3 level in his first split, that is amazing. Amazing. Yeah, but when Kalist perform on stage like in EMA finals and different, I think it would not be a problem to play in LEC studio. It's not a question of playing in the LEC studio. It's a question of adjusting to the lifestyle of being in Berlin and being in your own apartment and having your own responsibilities and things like this. And moving to Berlin is a big shock for some players. For some players, it doesn't matter. For some players, it does matter. And I think for anyone that is watching my content, I think that we should be smart enough to like a player like Kalist can be a generational player, but we should give him time, you know, should really, really give him time. And I think that that's the story of KC, you know, that's the story of KC. I think this is a roster that if they play their hand just right, and if they learn from the previous year, right, like I got cut off at my knees and they have every right to make the decision, I don't care, right? But some things need time, and I think this is a roster that does need time. But I worry that if things go wrong, that this is a team that is carrying so much pressure because of the fans and what the club represents and so forth. I hope they frame it the right way, because I do think that the potential of this roster on an individual basis is super, super high, but I think it carries a lot of risk because this is a roster with very, very little leadership as we see from now. I also think, like, in terms of the coaching staff, it's like Apples, Rea, and Wadi is like they are all also inexperienced when it comes to the LEC level, you know? So this is a project that carries a lot of potential, but also a lot of risk. So I do think that like KC is probably the team that just has the widest range, you know? So I hope the KC is learned. I think that Koi made a massive upgrade, plain and simple. Koi made a massive upgrade. I think that the weakest player by far last year was Frascawi. Meruin had a lot of upside with his cheeky picks, with the Varus, the Koki top, and so forth. And I think that he showed his level, especially when they made the finals. I think that Mirwin was a player that had a lot of fantastic moments. Frescawi was one of the weakest mid laners and one of the worst players at the World Championship. Frescawi was a very, very bad player. And I think that this signing is fantastic. JojoPuns, I think that JojoPuns as a player, we have all the memes and the whatever, but I understand why he's fired from C9, but the odds, it's just that JojoPuns as a player coming into his next year is going to have the problem solved. There's no way he's going to move to Europe and be in a high pressure environment and move Movistar Koi. There's nothing. Why you dish Polish players, collega? Because Nervarian, if I, in my assessment of individual players, am going to care where they are from, that makes me the worst analyst on earth. So, JojoPuns, I think that individually, I think is one of the best talents out of NA. I understand why he was removed from C9, right? He had like the highest paid contract and so forth, and they didn't make it, and there was a lot of troubles. But those troubles, they're not gonna happen here, bro. I don't think they're gonna happen again. I really don't think so. I think this is a tremendous signing. And JojoPuns seems very, very comfortable already, playing in at least like European solo queue. I just think that JojoPuns as a player and a personality will thrive. I think that I think that JojoPuns will thrive. I think the Super as a player has improved, and I think that Alvaro and Ilioya is a super strong core. I think these guys are. I think this is a solid roster, bro. Like I probably put them third. And now, the big question here is G2 versus Fnatic. G2 versus Fnatic. I do think that Fnatic is probably the one team that can challenge for the top spot, in my opinion. But there is just the question here of G2, right? With now Labrov and Skumond, I have so much trust. I have so much trust here in G2 in terms of, it's like G2, in my opinion, in what they carry here is they have shown that they have the strongest coaching staff, right? The strongest coaching staff. They have Caps, they have Broken Blade. I feel like Winter Split, they carry over so much already, bro. They carry over so much already. And I do think that in terms of managing beginning of a year, I do think that G2 are masters of that. I really, really think so. I think in the long term, I do think that teams can challenge G2 because I do think G2 has made downgrades. Skumond versus Yike, I think can be a side grade. I think that's good to change up, right? Because Yike wasn't really, really working. I think that he was... I think that over time he was playing worse and worse. So I like the risk of bringing Skumond in. But I do think that losing Mickey for Labrov, I think is just a downgrade. I think it's a downgrade. I think this is a very big risk. But G2 went through that roster for 2 years. It didn't work out. They wanted to make changes. Story of why that happened will come out maybe later. And I do think that in the jungle position, it does make sense to start anew, It's funny because Skumond is exactly what Yike was 2 years ago. But for me, I do think that losing Mickey for Labrov is a downgrade on paper. I think the key thing here to think about, because G2, of course, you're thinking about a longer horizon, is that it's like in terms of the supports that perform, like whatever criticism you want to give towards Mickey for his overall volume throughout the entire year, I think is fair. But if you think about his playoff series, his regional finals, his MSI, his worlds, These are the biggest moments of the year for G2. And Mickey performed really well in those games. Whether it was the series against T1 when he was farming people with Poppy, right? Or it was at the World Championship or the regional finals, you know? I just think that Mickey in those games, I don't think that Labrov will be able to offer that. Mickey together with Hilly are the most experienced supports, and they've been at the top for so long for very specific reasons. While Labrov is someone that sticks to a few champs, locks them in, and over time becomes predictable, you know? So I'm interested in seeing Labrov's development because he seems to be a very sensitive player. So we shall see. I think this is as crazy as it sounds. I do think that Fnatic getting Mickey is probably their biggest opportunity here, together with Upset. You know, their biggest opportunity to shake things up. Alerion, thank you very much for the tier 1. Good to see you, Elias. Good to see you. Nice. I start to talk about Fnatic and he shows up. Okay. So this is for winter in particular. I think maybe for winter in particular, I do think that maybe Casey in the short term. Nah, I do think I have to put Casey there. I think G2, I don't see them ever going beneath 1 and 2. I think Fnatic, I think they're the only team that can contest for third. And I think on their worst time, maybe they can dip against BDS and Koi, but these are just ranges. Koi maybe would be something like this. Casey is a funny one because I do think that their range is like heavier. Now let me see. Am I happy like this? Am I happy like this? Probably 8th is too harsh. Probably 7th. Let me see. So G2 1-2. I think only Fnatic could topple them if they figure things out. I just think G2. I think they just carry over too much experience, you know. I don't see them being like horrible, you know. I don't see them being horrible. I think also BDS carry such a good baseline, you know. I really think they carry such a good baseline. It's hard for me to see a world where KC end up higher than Fnatic and G2 because it's like Fnatic, the roster on paper, this is kind of nutty, bro. This is kind of nutty. But that was the same case for Fnatic last year. But I do think like Upset and Mickey together is crazy, bro. I really think it's crazy. I think there's a crazy ball lane, no? I think there's a crazy ball lane. Big year for these boys. But I am hopeful. I am very hopeful. I do think that if I compare last year's Fnatic versus G2 rosters, I do think that Fnatic have better chances this year to beat this year's G2. I think on paper it's just better, you know, if I compare it pound for pound. So we shall see. We shall see. This is interesting. Very, very interesting. I think BDS probably wouldn't drop it 05. How's Adam Malran going to operate? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it through too much nostalgia, you know? But I have this impression that Malrang and Jonghoon are gonna do well together. I have this impression, but maybe I'm being crazy. Maybe I'm being crazy. I feel like they're gonna do okay. I don't think they're going to do something crazy, but maybe they can steal a game or two, you know, in the BO1s, you know. I don't trust BDS aside of regular season. They just don't have the sauce for BO5s. I disagree, bro. I think it's quite dumb with that they didn't bring Oramno on Rogue, given the fact that Sinja is very good with Marang and Larsen. Nah. I think Adam is just a better player. I feel like Rogue is like, I don't know, they are Astralis without leader, you know? That's what this team is, bro. They're Astralis without leader. Maybe Larsen is just gonna be... And then, you know, maybe, just maybe with the new map, you know, with YamatoCannon and shit, I think maybe they execute the Malrang and Adam are just the best players to have. Just fight every objective and just be rock and roll. Is Rogue your former Vitality team? What? That doesn't make any sense on any level. All right, I'm pretty happy here. I'm pretty happy here. Just to add, guys, I repeat, win the split. It's fearless, okay? It's fearless draft. It's fearless draft BO1s. Fearless draft BO1s. So first BO1s, Super Weeks 3, and then it's fearless, full fearless. And this is a win to split list. After one split, of course, like if I made a list for the entire year, it would look very different, you know? But this is the short term, so we shall see.